Now, before we start the lesson or the notes over 4.2, are there any questions on the homework from 4.1? Okay. What we're doing today is we're starting off with addition, subtraction. We're adding and subtracting these polynomial expressions. Now, this isn't anything new. It's just combining like terms. Now, the first way, we're going to look at two ways, and then I'll let y'all decide which way y'all want to add or subtract. Vertically is a way to add or subtract. And what we do is we take one of the two expressions, we take the first expression, and we write it out. So 3x cubed is our biggest term, and we want to make sure we have all the ones that follow it. So we need our x squared term, so 2x squared, our x term, and our constant term. If we were missing any of these terms, we're going to fill it in as either 0 times that expression. So if we didn't have an x term, it'd be 0x. If we didn't have x squared, it'd be 0x squared. Then we're going to put our second expression underneath it and line up our like terms. So our x cubed would go under the 3x cubed. Our negative 10x squared would go under the 2x squared. However, we don't have an x term, so we can leave it blank, or we can write it in as plus 0x. And then our constant term plus 8. We want to line all of our like terms up. And if there's one missing, we can either fill it in as 0 times that variable, so 0x in this case, or just leave it blank. And the operation they told us to use for this here is addition, so we're going to be adding the two together. So we're going to have 3x cubed plus x cubed. 3 plus 1 is going to be 4x cubed. 2x squared plus negative 10x squared. 2x squared minus 10x squared. 2 minus 10 is going to be 8x squared. Negative x plus 0x, negative 1 plus 0, or just, well, negative x because nothing is being added to it, so we just have that one term. Negative 7 plus 8, negative 7 plus 8 is going to be plus 1. So our final answer after adding these two together is 4x cubed minus 8x squared minus x plus 1. Questions on how we added these two together? Now, the other way that we can add two polynomial expressions together is horizontally. This is the way we're used to seeing it. This is the way we're used to writing it. And if we're adding them together, the first thing we want to do is simplify our parentheses. Now, since there's nothing written in front of our first set of parentheses, there's not a number, there's not a sign there. It's understood to be positive 1. We can just drop the parentheses. The 9y cubed, 3y squared, negative 2y, and 1, all are going to be the same. The second set of parentheses, we can really distribute this plus this positive 1 through, which is really just telling us it's going to stay negative 5y squared, positive 1y, and negative 4. The signs aren't going to change. Questions on this so far? Now, if it helps at this point here, what we can do is we can combine, or we can move our like terms so that they're next to each other. So we start off with the term with the biggest exponent, so our y cubed, and I would want to move any other terms with y cubed next to it. Unfortunately, there aren't any. Next, we would put our y squareds together, so our 3y squared and negative 5y squared. We can put them next to each other. Then we can put our y terms next to each other, our negative 2y and positive 1y. And then lastly, we can put our constant terms of positive 1 and negative 4 next to each other. Because really all this is doing, we're just rewriting it so that our like terms are next to each other. And then we're going to combine like terms. 9y cubed does not have any like terms, so it's just 9y cubed. 3y squared minus 5y squared. 3 minus 5 is negative 2y squared. Negative 2y plus y is going to be negative y. And 1 minus 4 is negative 3. Questions on this here? Questions on adding or subtracting? The biggest thing I would also say with this here, this middle step of putting the like terms next to each other, I would do that if it helps, if you need those like terms next to each other to help you combine like terms. If you don't need it, it's not necessary, you don't have to do it. Okay? Because I don't think you may or may not necessarily need it. Yeah. Because realistically, if I was doing this here, let me back it up. From here, I would go through and look at our terms. 9y cubed has no like terms. So I'm going to write it as 9y cubed. I would look at my y squared terms, and I will specifically put a symbol, a way that I write underneath it, to signify, one, they're like terms, and two, making sure I got them all. So 3y squared minus 5y squared would be negative 2y squared. Our 2y and positive y would give us negative y. 1 minus 4 would give us negative 3. And that's all we'd really need to do. Now for this one here, it's not bad. But there are, especially when you get into higher level math, you will come across problems where you have 10, 12, 14, 16 terms that you're trying to combine. And I have found doing this notation underneath it is a great way to make sure, one, I get all my like terms, and two, that I don't miss a term, because it's very easy to miss 1 out of 16, 20 terms. Do we have any questions with addition, subtraction? Do you see another example of addition or subtraction? Well, really all we've done so far is addition. So if we feel good with that, we'll look at subtraction. Now I'll do an example of subtracting vertically. Because if we subtract vertically, we want to write the first expression on top and the second expression on bottom. And when we write these out, we want to make sure that the like terms line up. And if one of the two expressions is missing a term, we can either A, fill it in as 0 times whatever that variable is that's missing. So if it's x squared, it'd be 0x squared. If it's x, it'd be 0x. Or if it doesn't have a constant term, we can just fill it in as 0. And then we want to subtract. And with vertical subtraction, I want to make sure that I put the subtraction between each of the like terms, mainly just for my own remembering that I'm subtracting and not adding. And then we can just subtract. 2x cubed minus 8x cubed. 2 minus 8 is going to be negative 6x cubed. 6x squared minus negative 3x squared. Well, the negative and negative make a plus. 6x squared plus 3x squared is going to be plus 9x squared. Negative x minus negative 2x. Negative make a plus. Negative x plus 2x is going to be plus x. And 1 minus 9 is negative 8. Questions on this here? Now, most likely the way we're normally going to see subtraction, just like addition, we're more likely going to see it written out this way. Now, the first set of parentheses, because there's nothing in front of this here, it's just going to stay positive 3z squared. Positive 1z and negative 4. Now, just like the one we did on the quiz at the start, we're going to distribute that negative 3, telling us that we have negative 2z squared and negative 3z. Now, at this point here, we want to combine like terms, so our negative 3z squared and positive 3z squared and negative 2z squared. 3z squared minus 2z squared, 3 minus 2 is going to be positive 1z squared. Our z and negative 3z, z minus 3z is negative 2z. Since negative 4 does not have any like terms, it's just negative 4. Questions on this here? All right, so if we said the 4 was not here, but we had minus 4 over here, yes? It'd be plus 4 here. There wouldn't be a 4 here. Yep, so we would still distribute that negative into that 4, giving us plus 4. So no matter how it's set up, I would still follow those same steps. Yep. Questions on this here? Do we need to see another example of addition subtraction? If we feel comfortable with adding and subtracting, we can move on. And how you add or subtract, vertically or horizontally, it does not matter. Pick whichever one that you feel more comfortable with, that you feel better with, and do it that way. So if you feel better with it doing vertically, do it vertically. If you feel better horizontally, do it horizontally. Now we're going to multiply these two here. We're going to do multiplication. With polynomial expressions, I mainly just multiply horizontally. I don't do vertical multiplication with these polynomial expressions. It is possible to do it. It's a little funky, it's a little clunky in how it works and just set up, but if this way works, I'm always going to do it this way. And what we do with this here is we distribute one term at a time. So we're going to multiply our first term, the negative x squared, and do negative x squared times x. And negative x squared times x squared times x is x cubed, so we get negative x cubed. Find it? One more page probably. Yeah, we jumped a few. Since y'all felt comfortable with that, we just went on and moved on. Yeah, you're good. Now, our next one would be negative x squared times negative 3. Well, the negative and negative would make a positive, and 3 times x squared is just 3x squared. Then we would move on to the 2x and do the same thing. 2x times x is going to be positive 2x squared, because 2x times x would give us 2x squared. And then 2x times negative 3, 2 times negative 3 would be negative 6. And we do still have our x. Yes? And lastly, we're going to do the same thing with 4. Positive 4 times x is going to be plus 4x. And 4 times negative 3 would be negative 12. Combine like terms. Negative x cubed does not have any like terms, so it's just negative x cubed. Interestingly enough, how this multiplication ended up working, it actually put our like terms next to each other. 3x squared plus 2x squared is going to be plus 5x squared. Negative 6x plus 4x is negative 2x. And lastly, our constant term of negative 12 does not have any like terms, telling us that it's negative x cubed plus 5x squared minus 2x minus 12. Questions on this here? We can multiply the other direction. And again, we're doing the same thing. All we've got to do is multiply through. So we're going to multiply through by y first. So y times 3y squared would be 3y cubed. Y times negative 2y is going to be negative 2y squared. And then y times 2 is going to be plus 2y. Then we're going to multiply through by 5. 5 times 3y squared is going to be plus 15y squared. 5 times negative 2y is going to be negative 10y. And lastly, 5 times 2 is going to be plus 10. Now, unlike the last one, we don't have necessarily our like terms next to each other. But our y cubed term doesn't have any like terms. Our y squared, we have negative 2y squared plus 15y squared. Well, negative 2 plus 15, 15 minus 2 is going to be 13, so 13y squared. And we go to our y terms, 2y minus 10y, 2 minus 10 would be negative 8y. Lastly, our constant term does not have any like terms, so it's just plus 10. Questions on this here? Do you feel comfortable with multiplication? Okay. Even doing this here, having 3 terms is not anything hugely different. We just have to do 2 at a time. So the first thing that I would do is I would just pick 2 of them that I want to multiply together first. I normally pick the 2 that will be nicer or simpler to multiply first. Here it doesn't really make a difference doing x minus 1 and x plus 4, multiplying those first, or x plus 4 and x plus 5. The only one I would avoid multiplying first would be x minus 1 and x plus 5. That's a little bit of a jump to try to do. So here we can multiply the first 2. So we'll still have parentheses because we're going to have to multiply with the third one. X times x is x squared. X times 4 is going to be 4x. We'll do the same thing with negative 1. Negative 1 times x is negative x, and negative 1 times 4 is negative 4. Questions on this so far? Now we can multiply x squared plus 4x minus x minus 4 by the x plus 5. I wouldn't. I would simplify our like terms first before we multiply again. Now, not simplifying and just going on and multiplying and simplifying at the end will still give us the same answer. It just gives us more terms. And after we simplify, we can multiply again. X squared times x would be x cubed. X squared times 5 is 5x squared. 3x times x is going to be plus 3x squared. 3x times 5 is plus 15x. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. And negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. And lastly, when we combine like terms, well, x cubed doesn't have any like terms. Our x squared terms instantly are next to each other. 5x squared plus 3x squared is 8x squared. Our x terms, 15x minus 4x, is going to be plus 11x. And our constant term of negative 20 doesn't have any like terms, telling us our final answer is x cubed plus 8x squared plus 11x minus 20. Questions on multiplying three binomials together. Now, there are some special product patterns. If I know that I have a plus b times a minus me, it's going to give us a squared minus b squared. Same with these other two. So if we know the pattern, it can kind of help us get to the solution quicker, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to do it that way. But that is it for this here.